Welcome to another episode of Southern Ohio Matters with Gina Collinsworth. Today we're going to be looking at a very important topic, and that is broadband in Southern Ohio. So stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of Southern Ohio Matters with Gina Collinsworth. Gina Collinsworth is a public information coordinator with the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission here in Pike County. Gina, it's always a pleasure talking with you.
Hey, Patrick, it's been a while, hasn't it? It's great to see you again. And I see that background behind you. We're all thinking about spring now that we're here in the middle of winter and we've got rain and gray skies in Southern Ohio and snow up north. So we want all the good sunshine we can get.
Yeah, that is very, very true. You know, Gina, as a public information coordinator with the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission, you meet all sorts of different individuals that help the communities.
Absolutely. It is a fantastic opportunity for me to be here. And, the OVRDC is what we call it shorthand. We serve 12 counties in Southern Ohio and Central Ohio. And we have what we call a designation of a local development district and an economic development district. And we have sisters organizations in Appalachian Ohio. And today we're going to meet one of our sister organization members that is working alongside OVRDC on the issue of broadband. And Patrick, broadband is so important. I know we talk about it a lot, but that's the reason we talk about it. It is so important to every aspect. We have an impact in education. It has an impact in economic activity and small business and health concerns with telehealth and, rural Ohio, rural America. This is the issue that everyone's talking about right now. And I'm glad to have a great guest to explain more about it.
Well, I think that's very important. There are still some areas located in our area that still have dial-up telephone for internet access. And I find that so strange in today's technology.
Absolutely. If they have broadband, Patrick, there are quite a few that don't have broadband. And that's what our organization and our guest today is from Buckeye Hills Regional Council in Marietta. And they serve several counties over there, like we serve 12 counties here. And they're doing what we're doing. We're trying to talk about the issue and liaison with the state and the federal programs that are out there, to see what we can do to get that service expanded in our area so that we have everyone connected, not just a few around cities or towns. We want everybody to have access. It needs to be level playing field.
Well, the one question I want to ask your guest is, what does he mean by broadband? So,
okay, I will ask. That's a great question. Might even start with that. All right, Patrick, I'm going to go ahead and welcome to the show this morning my first guest is Ryan Collins from Buckeye Hills Regional Council. Good morning, Ryan.
Morning, Gina. Good morning, Patrick. Thanks for having me.
Great. So glad you could make time for us. Ryan is the broadband coordinator at Buckeye Hills Regional Council. And Ryan is so knowledgeable because as we have found, as we've tried to work on this issue in our region, it's a very complicated issue as to why we have problems. And Ryan can tell us more about that. But first, I want to ask you, Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you first got interested in broadband advocacy work.
Thanks, Gina. So for everybody listening, my name's Ryan Collins. I'm the Special Projects Manager, Broadband Coordinator at Buckeye Hills Regional Council, which is BHRC for short. We are a sister organization to OVRDC. As they cover 12 counties, we cover 8 in southeastern Ohio. We cover Athens, Hocking, Meigs, Monroe, Morgan, Noble, Perry, and Washington County. We are also a local development district, as well as the area agency on aging for our area. In terms of what got me interested in broadband advocacy work, I've always wanted to help people from a very young age. I've wanted to just help as many people as I can in the short amount of time that I have. And I'm originally from this region. So I grew up in Columbus until I was around 10 or 11 years old. But then my dad retired from the phone company and we moved out to southeastern Licking County, northern Perry County. And as I just listed, Perry County is one of the counties that we cover here in Buckeye Hills. And so I saw an opportunity to go and help my home region. And so I jumped on it.
I think it's really interesting to learn about your dad working in the phone company, you know, because there is a little bit of correlation, I think, between broadband and phone service. And maybe that you're almost like second generation, you know, working on communications.
Yes, kind of. I'm also second generation working in like advocacy work and development. My mom is the current executive director of the State Arts Council, and she was the executive director of several nonprofits for arts education and arts advocacy.
It's a fantastic way to get up every morning and go to work, in my opinion. I think you share that, Ryan. And when I get your emails, I like the way you sign off on your emails, joyfully yours, because, you know, there are a lot of problems, but we are focusing on how do we fix them, and we go at it with hope, you know, and trust that we can work together and make an impact. So I'm really glad you had time to be on the show today. I know for myself, Ryan, when I started helping here at OVRDC on the broadband issue on the program side, you were really great to help me understand some of the background on broadband and understand some of the technical terms. And I wanted to mention here on the show that Buckeye Hills Regional Council has been very active, and they were actually the first of our sister LDDs that took on the topic of broadband and really worked on advocacy and raising awareness before we even kind of helped jump on the bandwagon with you guys leading the way. Can you tell us a little bit about that at Buckeye Hills? How did it start? How did you guys get involved with broadband, and why do you think it's so important?
Gotcha. Happy to. So our former executive director, Misty Crosby, she was here for numerous years, a juggernaut in the region and across the country when it comes to economic development, and in particularly in Appalachia. Over a decade ago is when Buckeye Hills Regional Council started our broadband work, because Misty saw it as being very important even a decade ago. So we've been working with the Reed Consulting Group for a very long time. Tom Reed is the head of Reed Consulting Group. He has also been a juggernaut, and particularly when it comes to broadband in southeastern Ohio and Appalachian Ohio, and getting the citizens of Appalachian Ohio not just adequate broadband service, but the best broadband service that they can get, because they deserve that. Just because we live in rural areas and we live in the rural expanse doesn't mean we don't deserve the best internet service that we can get.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you know, we're just going to jump into how do you think that the lack of broadband impacts people and communities? I know personal stories, you know, from my area and myself, and Patrick and I were kind of talking about this before we started the show. You know, broadband back in the day was just a dream for most people, but now it's a necessity.
100%. And to answer the question that Patrick had, broadband is internet service. Broadband is just the technical term for internet connections and being able to connect online. But broadband also encompasses digital equity. And so having access to devices, having access to digital skills training, and having affordable connections. The way that lack of access impacts people is huge. It impacts everything in your everyday life. Broadband is the #1 equity tool of the future. It impacts healthcare. It impacts workforce development. It impacts education. It impacts leisure and just living your life. Everybody wants to go home at the end of the day to relax, and turning on Netflix and doing that is a great way to do it, especially in today's day and age. It keeps you connected to the global culture, because you want to be able to go to work and talk about the same things that your coworkers are talking about. You want your kid to be able to go to school and be able to connect with their friends by talking about those things. And the only way to connect to that is through the internet, especially here in the rural expanse and in rural areas, because we're so spread out. And so you don't necessarily go to all the same events as everybody, but you can watch all the same things they do because it's all on the internet. So it impacts us all greatly, and it impacts us all in different ways.
That is very, very true. One of the things that I found, and we had another show, Marketing Matters, in which Christy was talking about how businesses can use social media
Mhm.
to promote their programs.
1,000%. It impacts businesses greatly on multiple levels. It impacts posting jobs that they have openings for. I don't know the last time I saw an actual paper application anywhere. Maybe at the grocery store so that high school kids could fill it out if they wanted to while they're at the store. But otherwise, they're posted online and you're expected to send a resume through their system. You have access to the global economy in that way. You're able to create a storefront online and sell to people from outside your region. You can advertise to them, just like you said, through either social media or buying ad space on Facebook or on any other social media site. You can start a YouTube channel and start doing ads on YouTube. It's huge. You also have access to ordering supplies, and you need broadband services to run credit cards. So if you have a card machine or a card reader, it has to connect to the internet. And if you're able to do that faster through a better internet connection, you can serve more customers.
Ryan, I know that your organization and ours, economic development focused. You guys are also working with the area agency to help seniors.
Mhm.
And I know we do a transportation. You guys do too. We focus on transportation. But I think about broadband and, what is it about our region that makes it such a challenge?
So there's a few reasons why. One of the biggest is our topography. So Appalachia is the oldest region on the planet, the oldest mountains in the world. They've existed since before animals existed. You can find very few fossils throughout all of Appalachia because it's so old. But because it's so old, it's very hilly. The ground is very dense. So burying fiber is very, very costly because they have to try to dig under things. And when they dig under things, they hit rock and hit clay, and it's just not fun. And then because of our hills and all of our trees, it makes us really beautiful, but it makes wireless services really hard to use as well. And same with satellite, because it can't pierce through our trees, it can't pierce through our mountains and our hills. And so they either have to build more towers to reach more people, or it's just not going to reach them. Thing to do with fiber, fiber then has to be built over the hills if they go aerial. And so that adds cost into it and adds, not let alone the fact that our population density isn't as high as it is in urban areas. And that's a big thing that internet service providers look at when they're deciding to build out to an area, because they, as a business, naturally, they have to make back the money that they invest into that area. And so the only way they're able to make that money is through grant investments. And so that's what they rely on to build out to areas like ours.
And we've been seeing quite a few of those opportunities come. And that was another reason we've been working so hard on understanding the issue. You mentioned satellite a minute ago. And I think one thing we all thought about Elon Musk's Starlink, we kind of all thought, well, maybe that'll fix the problem. What do you think? What's your opinion on that?
For those that can get it and can afford it, I think it would be a great service, but it's incredibly costly. And as I just said, satellite doesn't work well in our area unless you want to clear out every tree around your property so that it can hit it. But even then, it's still gonna be spotty because it's satellite, and you're gonna have really big latency issues. They're using low Earth orbiting technology, which is better than previous satellite technology, but the latency is still really high. Latency is the discrepancy between the time that the data leaves your computer and gets to the device and then gets back to the internet. And same thing coming to you. It's the speed between like the satellite and the data getting to you. And so it causes delays in your internet service. Whenever you're on a call like this one that we're on, if somebody's mouth is moving, but you're not hearing anything, and then the sound comes through, that's because of latency. If they're being choppy and moving around, it's because of bad latency issues.
That explains a lot. That really annoys me. I don't know about you, but and you mentioned latency and you explained that term. Thank you for doing that. My next question is, why I personally think a lot of times we don't feel confident engaging on broadband issues because of all these different terms and, it's very technical. So maybe, Ryan, could you explain to our listeners and viewers, what's the difference between fixed wireless and fiber to the home?
Sure. So fixed wireless is anything that is a wireless device that is put onto a fixed location. So you have towers that fixed wireless goes onto. They kind of look like cell phone towers, but they're not. Or you have them attached to, we use here in Ohio now, we use our MARCS towers, which is our emergency services towers, and they can put wireless service technology on there. And so that broadcasts a signal out. And when you buy service through a fixed wireless provider, they give you a receiver for that. And that's how you get internet. Fiber and any wired technology, you see that out on poles, or you see them burying it out in trenches and burying it under streets and such. That actually connects directly to your home. And fiber is the fastest of those because it's not transferring it necessarily through an electrical signal, it's transferring it through light. And so the data actually gets to you at the speed of light, and it's able to hold the most data. Like fiber, we haven't found the top end of what it can do yet. Last summer, there was a Japanese research team that put like a terabit worth of data through fiber, and it wasn't even close to topping out. And so it's a very future-proof technology because it can continue to be used. You just have to add more strands.
That is so exciting to think about that. So what they're putting in now, fiber, is going to serve us for how many years to come, hopefully?
Yes, there are providers currently in the area who are putting fiber in and offering two gigabit symmetrical service. So 2 gigabits download speed and 2 gigabits upload speed. And they know that that's not going to be widely purchased, but they did it as a show of good faith to show to our communities like, hey, we can upgrade this technology and keep it going so that we don't just have to like come back in with more grant funds and rebuild infrastructure.
I'm so glad you shared that because it makes a good point that I want viewers to know. You might hear the term public-private partnership, and this is not necessarily that, but what I do see in the broadband issue is a close alignment of, industry and the public sector trying to work together on the issue to solve it. And like you mentioned, companies are future-proofing by adding in more capacity really than is necessary at this moment. What do you think are the ideal speeds that we should be expecting right now? And maybe explain a little bit about what Mbps means.
Gotcha. So I'll explain the terms first. Megabits per second is the amount of data that can transfer from your device or to your device per second. It's same thing for gigabits per second, terabits per second, et cetera, et cetera. So that is just the speed of your internet service. The current FCC definition of broadband is 25 megabits per second download speed, 3 megabits per second upload speed, but that definition is very out of date, and they are even talking about updating it. It just takes time for that to get done. Bureaucracy, we all know about it. But all federal programs now are using a definition of 100 over 100. So 100 megabits per second download, 100 megabits per second upload, except for in rural areas. In rural areas like ours, they're using the definition of 100 megabits per second download, 20 megabits per second upload. But we want to see those symmetrical speeds, so both of those numbers being the same, because we're doing more things like this now. We are talking over Zoom calls. We are taking Teams meetings. We are creating content on the internet and uploading it. So in the past, the split speeds was because people weren't really creating content on the internet. They were just digesting it. And so for those places that were creating content, they were getting symmetrical speeds and higher speeds from internet service providers because they needed it. And we were getting the split speeds because we didn't need that. We were mostly just downloading data. But that's changed, especially with the pandemic. People are creating content and uploading content more than ever before.
Working from home, I know that's
Yes.
a big thing that we all enjoy, and we're so glad to have that. Working from home, you could work any job in America, really.
Yes,
from
100%.
Appalachia,
100%. So we should be advocating for and fighting for those higher symmetrical speeds.
Just so we're ready.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the technical part. Who are some of the people or the agencies and the programs that are working on this problem?
Gotcha. So we have here in Ohio, we have our state broadband office, Broadband Ohio. You have individuals like myself and Buckeye Hills Regional Council that people can reach out to. The FCC currently has their mapping process going on for the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. So they have the FCC Fabric Map, which you can find at broadbandmap.fcc.gov. And I encourage everybody to go and check their address on there. before doing that, make sure to turn on the fixed wireless and wired layer on the map, because those are the only two technologies they're considering as broadband, because other services aren't as reliable and have too high of latency issues, etc. So go on there and check your address and make sure that the services that are provided there are accurate. That way, not only is your home counted with BEAD funding, as long as you are considered underserved or unserved. Underserved is anything below that 100/20. Unserved is anything below that 25/3. So not only will you be eligible, but that'll also help the state of Ohio to get more funding from BEAD, which is the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. There's $42.45 billion that are being sent out to the states through a formula using the underserved and unserved households. And so the more accurate the map, the more funding that the state of Ohio can get to bring broadband service to everyone.
42 billion.
Yes.
That's amazing. And finally, I'm really happy to see that that's the kind of resources that are coming down the pike, and might take a while to get them out into the community. But, this is where the community can get involved, because we do hear a lot in our office from people who are out there desolate, in that digital desert, and they have no connection. They're like, when is this going to happen? So, I keep saying, well, we're working on it. It's coming, and hopefully it'll come fast and soon, I wanted to ask you, I always like to hear success stories. So we're getting close to time, but Ryan, how many success stories can you share? Can you share a couple?
Yeah, so here in our region, so recently we had the House Bill 2, or the ORBEG program, the Ohio Residential Broadband Expansion Grant Program. We were able to get, there was $250 million up for grabs in that grant program. We were able to get 80 something million of that to come into our region for our 8 counties. There are a couple big projects going on in Noble County right now. Noble County might be the first county in the state to have like wall-to-wall fiber because of those projects. Perry County is getting build outs from Spectrum. There are multiple projects going on throughout the region, just that private companies are doing it on their own and that we're keeping tabs on. So people are paying attention and people want to serve our areas.
So the last question I'll ask you then, Ryan, is about digital equity. What does that term mean?
So digital equity means multiple things. Digital equity is ensuring that all citizens and not even just all citizens, that everyone that lives in an area has adequate access and equal access to broadband services. So having that also means affordability. It means having access to devices to connect to the internet. It means having access to digital skills training so that you know how to use it and you know what you're doing. It means making sure that people get access to affordability programs like the Affordable Connectivity Program if they need that. It just means literally, as it says, digital equity, but so much falls under that blanket. It has all 3 pillars of digital equity: is affordability, access, and accessibility.
When I talk about us working on the issue, really what our organizations are, it's members from all the counties we serve. So yep. Commissioners and engineers and all those people are part of our commissions and our organizations, and that's who's working on the problem. And we're glad to be partnering with them, because this is, in our opinion, like one of the biggest issues in our region for economic and community development. So
yes, 100% agree. As I said earlier, broadband is the #1 equity tool of the future because it covers everything and it touches everything in our everyday lives.
It sure does. Ryan, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I've learned a lot, and you're always so willing to help people understand the issue, the importance of it, and all the technical that goes along with it. Thanks for your time today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
One of the things that Ryan and I both talk about through our work in the agencies is broadband is infrastructure. It's infrastructure of the future. We have to, that's a mindset we need to adopt. It's just as essential as water, sewer, electric, at this point in our digital world, it's essential. We have to have it.
It's going to go the way of all those services, because all those services were also considered luxuries at one point.
Patrick, I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity through the Ohio State work that you guys are doing over there at the Endeavor Center and all the small business work you do. It's great to partner with you and your organization, and you're really one of our favorite people, Patrick.
Well, this is one of my favorite shows. We do a number of different shows on a variety of different topics, but Southern Ohio, I'm amazed that most individuals don't realize the kind of quality life that we have down in Southern Ohio.
It's absolutely the most beautiful place in Ohio. I'm sorry to everyone listening and watching, but come and see us and you'll agree.
Yes, yes. Gina, thank you very much. Hey, we're talking with Gina Collinsworth. Gina is a public information coordinator with the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission here in Pike County. Gina, thank you.
Thank you.